Some men become powerful by being loud. Others become legends by being remembered. This is not a story told in headlines. It's told behind closed doors, in unfinished sentences, and in moments that never made the news. Every city has a shadow, and every shadow has a name people don't say out loud. Over the next 30 episodes, you will witness how one man rose, not through chaos but through control. How silence became more dangerous than threats. How a single decision changed lives forever. This series is for those who believe power isn't given. It's earned through patience, discipline, and choices made when no one is watching. If you're here for more than entertainment, if you're here for lessons hidden inside stories, then you're in the right place. Subscribe to the channel and become part of the journey. Legends aren't watched once. They're followed. This is the legend of the Mafia boss. Episode 1 begins now. The kitchen went silent the moment his car pulled through the gate. I was scrubbing the stove when I heard it. The low growl of an engine that wasn't supposed to be there. Not today. Not for another 3 weeks. Mrs. Castellano dropped the dish towel she was folding. Her face went pale as old paper. "He's here," she whispered, and those 2 words sucked all the air from the room. I looked out the window and saw the black sedan, sleek and predatory, rolling to a stop in the circular driveway. The door opened. Dominic Raines stepped out, tall and dark in his expensive suit. His movements controlled and precise. He was home early. 2 hours before noon on a Wednesday when he was supposed to be in Chicago negotiating territory deals that would take weeks. Something was wrong. Mrs. Castellano grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in hard. "Get upstairs. Stay in your room. Don't come down unless I call you." But it was too late. Dominic's eyes swept the kitchen windows as he walked toward the house, and for one terrible second, his gaze locked on mine, cold, assessing, like he was looking through me and seeing every secret I'd ever buried. The front door opened, and the house held its breath. I was nobody in this house. Just a housekeeper who'd been here 6 months, keeping my head down and my mouth shut. I cleaned the marble floors, washed the crystal glasses, dusted the paintings worth more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes. My name is Anna Mercer. I am 26 years old. No family left except a mountain of hospital debt from when my mother spent 3 years dying in a bed I couldn't afford. I lived in a tiny room on the 3rd floor, ate whatever the cook gave me, and spoke only when spoken to. The Raines estate was a fortress. Stone walls, iron gates, cameras on every corner. Men in dark suits patrolling the grounds with guns hidden under their jackets. I'd learned not to ask questions, not to look too closely, not to exist too loudly. Before this, I'd worked in a diner, then a laundromat, then a grocery store that fired me when I asked for time off to visit my mother's grave. I was always one paycheck from disaster, always invisible. When the agency sent me here, they said the pay was excellent but the rules were strict. Show up, work hard, stay out of the way. Perfect for someone like me. I thought I'd finally found a place where I could disappear. Dominic Raines moved through the house like he owned the air itself. Every step was deliberate. Every glance calculated. He didn't speak to Mrs. Castellano when he entered. He simply nodded, and she nodded back, her face carefully blank. I stayed frozen in the kitchen doorway, my hands still wet from scrubbing. He walked past me without acknowledgement, heading toward his office at the end of the hall. The door closed with a quiet click that somehow felt louder than a slam. Mrs. Castellano exhaled slowly. "Back to work," she muttered, but her voice shook. The house transformed around his presence. Staff moved quieter. Doors stayed closed. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the light seemed different, filtered through tension thick as fog. I returned to the stove, but my hands trembled as I scrubbed. This wasn't my world. I didn't belong in a place where silence meant danger and power lived in every shadow. I was just trying to survive. Just trying to earn enough to pay off the debt collectors who called 3 times a week. But I felt him in the house now. Felt the weight of his authority pressing down on every room. This wasn't just his home. It was his kingdom, and I was standing in it without permission. That afternoon, I was dusting the library when he appeared in the doorway. I didn't hear him approach. One moment I was alone, running a cloth over leather-bound books. The next he was there watching me with those dark, unreadable eyes. I nearly dropped the duster. Mr. Rains. I didn't hear you. I can come back later if. Continue. His voice was quiet but absolute. Not a suggestion. Command. I turned back to the shelves, hyper-aware of every movement I made. My pulse hammered in my throat. Why was he watching me? Had I done something wrong? Was I being evaluated? Judged? Dismissed? Anna Mercer, he said, and my stomach dropped. He knew my name. You've been here 6 months. Yes, sir. Punctual. Thorough. Quiet. I didn't know if that was praise or observation. I kept dusting, my hands steady through sheer force of will. You don't ask questions, he continued. You don't gossip with the other staff. You keep to yourself. I just do my job, sir. Silence stretched between us. Then he spoke again, softer this time. Your mother died 2 years ago. Cancer. You were with her until the end. My chest tightened. How did he know that? Why did he know that? Yes, sir. He stepped closer. Loyalty matters in this house, Anna. Do you understand? I understand. That night, Mrs. Castellano called me to the kitchen after dinner service. Her face was tight with worry, her hands twisting a dish rag into knots. Mr. Rains came home because of you, she said quietly. The words hit me like a fist. What? I don't understand. I haven't done anything. I just clean and... 3 days ago, someone tried to use your name to access the service entrance after hours. They had forged credentials. Security stopped them, but it raised flags. My blood went cold. I wasn't here 3 days ago. I was at the market buying supplies for the kitchen. You sent me yourself. I know. That's what I told Mr. Rains. But someone knew your schedule, knew your routine, used you as a cover. Who? Mrs. Castellano shook her head. That's what he's trying to find out. But Anna, you need to understand something. In this house, proximity to danger makes you dangerous. Even if you're innocent. I sat down hard in the nearest chair. My hands were shaking again. Am I going to lose my job? I don't know. He's deciding. She paused, her expression softening slightly. There's something else. 2 years ago, when your mother was in the hospital, someone paid her bills. Anonymous donor. Every month until she passed. My breath caught. What? It was him, Mrs. Castellano whispered. Mr. Rains. He never told you. He doesn't tell anyone. But I handle the books. I know. The next morning my routine was gone. Mrs. Castellano met me before breakfast and handed me a new schedule. Different rooms. Different hours. No more evening work. No more errands outside the estate. Temporary precaution, she said, but her eyes told me it was more than that. I wasn't allowed in the East Wing anymore. Not near Dominic's office or his private quarters. My world shrank to the main living areas and my small room on the 3rd floor. I felt like a prisoner who hadn't been charged with a crime. At lunch, I ate alone in the staff dining room. The cook, Paolo, usually joked with me about his terrible singing voice. Today he barely looked at me. The gardener, Felix, who always asked about my mother's favorite flowers, walked past without a word. I was contaminated. Mark. Even though I'd done nothing wrong. That afternoon, I cleaned the same hallway 3 times because I had nowhere else to go. My chest felt tight. My throat burned with unshed tears. I'd worked so hard to stay invisible. To be reliable. To earn my place. Now I was visible in the worst possible way. I thought about running. Just packing my single suitcase and walking out the gate. But where would I go? I had $47 in my bank account. No references if I left under suspicion. No family to turn to. I was trapped. On the 3rd day of my restricted schedule, I found a file folder on my bed. Plain manila. No label. Inside were copies of security reports dating back 8 months, before I'd even started working here. They were about me. My daily routes to work at my old jobs. The times I visited my mother's hospital. The grocery store where I shopped. The library where I spent Sunday afternoons because my apartment was too depressing. Everything documented, photographed, recorded. Someone had been watching me long before I came to this house. My hands shook as I read through page after page. There were notes in neat handwriting. Consistent schedule. No suspicious contacts. Visits mother daily. Works overtime without complaint. Financially desperate. At the bottom of the last page was a single line. Recommended for household staff. Low risk. High loyalty potential. I'd been vetted. Studied. Chosen. The early return wasn't about what happened 3 days ago. It was about protecting an investment. I wasn't a person like Dominic Raines. I was an asset that had been compromised. I sat on my narrow bed, staring at the surveillance photos of myself carrying groceries, sitting by my mother's bedside, walking home in the rain. Tears blurred my vision. I'd thought I was invisible, but I'd been watched the entire time. The next day, Mrs. Castellano moved me to a room on the second floor. Larger. Better furnished. A private bathroom with hot water that didn't sputter. Windows that locked from the inside. Mr. Raines's orders, she said, setting fresh towels on the bed. You'll be safer here. Safer. The word felt like a cage. The new room was directly below Dominic's quarters. I could hear footsteps above me at night. The faint sound of a television. Door closing. I was being kept close. Monitored. Protected or imprisoned, I couldn't tell which. That evening, a man in a dark suit came to my door. He introduced himself as Bruno, head of security. He gave me a phone, small and simple, with only 3 numbers programmed in. Emergency line. Mrs. Castellano. And Mr. Raines. You press that third button, he answers. No matter what time. No matter where he is. I don't understand why. You don't need to understand. You just need to use it if something feels wrong. Bruno's face was hard but not unkind. Someone tried to get to you once. They might try again. Now you have a lifeline. After he left, I stared at the phone. The third button glowed faintly in the dark. A direct line to Dominic Raines. A man I'd spoken to maybe 10 times. A man whose world I didn't understand. I was safer. But I'd never felt more alone. The rules came the next morning, typed on heavy cardstock and slipped under my door. 10 items. Numbered. Non-negotiable. Do not leave the estate without approval. Report any unusual contact immediately. Maintain your regular duties only in assigned areas. Do not discuss household matters with anyone outside staff. Avoid the East Wing after 8 p.m. Keep your phone charged and on your person at all times. Trust the security team. Follow Mrs. Castellano's instructions without question. If you see Mr. Raines, acknowledge but do not approach unless invited. Your safety depends on your cooperation. I read them 3 times. Each rule felt like a thread in a net pulling tighter around me. My safety depended on cooperation. Translation. Obey or face consequences I couldn't imagine. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand answers. But I folded the card and put it in my pocket because I had no power here. No voice. No choice. That afternoon, I scrubbed bathroom tiles until my knuckles bled. Physical pain was easier than the helplessness eating me from inside. When I finally stopped, my reflection stared back from the mirror. Red eyes, pale skin, hair pulled back in a messy bun. I looked like a ghost. I thought about my mother in those final days. How she'd held my hand and said, "You're stronger than you know, Anna. You'll survive this." I wasn't sure anymore. A week passed. Then 2. The restrictions didn't ease. My world stayed small and controlled. Cleaned. Ate. Slept. I existed within invisible walls I couldn't see but felt constantly. Dominic remained in the house, working from his office, taking calls in Italian and Russian, hosting meetings that ended with men leaving through the back exit in the middle of the night. I saw him occasionally in hallways, always moving with purpose, always alone. He never spoke to me, never acknowledged me beyond a brief nod. But I felt his presence constantly. In the phone I carried, in the new lock on my door, in the way Bruno checked on me twice a day, asking if everything was all right in a tone that made it clear he expected a specific answer. I should have been grateful. Had safety, security, good room, regular meals, more than I'd had in years. Instead, I felt suffocated. One evening, I stood at my window watching rain streak the glass. The estate stretched below, beautiful and empty. Lights glowed in the gardens. Guards walked their routes. Everything orderly and controlled. I pressed my hand to the glass and felt the cold seep through. This wasn't protection. This was possession. I was an object being secured, a potential liability being managed, and I was starting to hate myself for accepting it. On the 17th day, I heard crying. Muffled. Coming from somewhere down the hall. I paused in the middle of folding laundry, listening. There it was again. A child's voice, choked with tears. I shouldn't have investigated. Rule 5. Avoid areas after assigned hours. But something in that sound pulled at me. Made my chest ache with recognition. I followed it to a door I'd never noticed before. Painted the same cream as the walls, easy to miss. The crying came from inside. I knocked gently. Silence. I knocked again. Hello. Are you all right? The door opened a crack. A small face appeared. A boy, maybe 7 years old, with dark hair and gray eyes that looked too old for his face. He stared at me without speaking. I'm Anna, I said softly. I work here. I heard you crying. Are you hurt? He shook his head slowly. Are you scared? Longer pause. Then a tiny nod. Me too, I admitted. Sometimes this house feels really big and really quiet. The boy opened the door wider. His room was enormous but sparse. Toys sat untouched in a corner. A bed that seemed too large for him. Everything neat and empty. What's your name? He asked. Tommy. His voice was barely a whisper. Hi, Tommy. Can I sit with you for a minute? He nodded and stepped back. I entered the room and the door clicked shut behind me. Tommy didn't talk much. He sat on his bed, hugging a pillow, watching me with those two old eyes. I sat in the chair by the window and waited. Silence didn't scare me. I'd learned to live in it. After a long time he spoke. Uncle Dominic came home early. Yes, he did. That means something bad happened. I didn't know how to respond to that. This child understood the truth of this house in ways I was still learning. Do you live here with your uncle? Asked gently. Since my parents died. Car accident. 2 years ago. My chest tightened. 2 years. The same year I'd lost my mother. I'm sorry, Tommy. He shrugged, but his eyes were wet. Everyone's sorry. But sorry doesn't bring them back. I knew that feeling. The emptiness that platitudes couldn't fill. The anger at people who offered sympathy instead of solutions. You're right, I said. Sorry doesn't help. But being scared alone makes it worse. Trust me. I know. Tommy looked at me with curiosity. You're scared. Every day. I'm new here. I don't understand the rules. I don't know who to trust. And I miss my mom so much sometimes I can't breathe. His face softened slightly, like I'd said something that made sense. We sat together in the quiet, two people who understood loss. And for the first time since Dominic came home early, I felt like I wasn't completely alone. I started visiting Tommy every evening after dinner, quietly, without asking permission. I'd knock on his door and he'd let me in, and we'd sit together doing nothing important. Sometimes I helped him with homework. Sometimes we just looked out the window at the grounds below. He talked more as the days passed. About his parents. About how his father had been Dominic's brother. About how the accident happened on a bridge during a storm. About how he couldn't remember their faces anymore without looking at photos. I told him about my mother, about holding her hand during chemo, about reading to her when she was too weak to speak, about the hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and fear. We understood each other. Two people carrying grief nobody else could see. Tommy started smiling occasionally. Small smiles, fragile as spiderwebs but real. He showed me his drawings. Dark, heavy lines and empty spaces. He asked questions about my life before the estate. He let me ruffle his hair without flinching. The house felt less suffocating with him in it. One evening as I was leaving, he grabbed my hand. Anna. Yeah. Thank you for not lying to me. Everyone else pretends everything's fine. But you don't. I squeezed his hand gently. I'm terrible at pretending. He smiled. Me too. Mrs. Castellano caught me leaving Tommy's room one night. She stood in the hallway, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. I started. I know what you were doing. She studied me for a long moment. Come with me. We walked to her office, a small room off the kitchen filled with ledgers and files. She closed the door and sat heavily in her chair. Do you know why you're really here, Anna? I shook my head. 3 years ago you worked at a diner on 5th Street. One night a man came in drunk and angry. Started harassing a pregnant waitress. You stepped between them. My breath caught. I remembered. The man had grabbed the waitress by the arm, shaking her, yelling. I'd picked up a coffee pot and told him to leave or I'd call the police. He'd pushed me instead. I'd fallen, hit my head on the counter. Ended up with 6 stitches and no job because the owner said I'd caused a scene. That waitress was my niece, Mrs. Castellano said quietly. She told me what you did. How you protected her even though you were half his size. How you didn't ask for anything afterward. I stared at her. I didn't know. I know. That's the point. She pulled out a folder and handed it to me. When Mr. Raines asked me to recommend someone for the household staff, I suggested you. Because loyalty isn't about what you do when you're being watched. It's about what you do when nobody's looking. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Everything made sense now. The surveillance, the vetting, the protection. I'd been chosen because I'd done the right thing once. And that single moment had ripples I never saw coming. But recognition didn't feel like victory. Felt like weight. Like I was expected to be that person all the time now. The one who stepped between danger and innocence. The one who absorbed the blow. I thought about Tommy in his big empty room. About the fear he carried like armor. About how we'd both learned that being good didn't protect you from pain. The phone on my nightstand glowed faintly in the dark. The third button. The direct line. I picked it up and stared at it for a long time. Then I pressed the button. Rang once. Anna. Dominic's voice was quiet but alert. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I wanted to thank you. Silence on the other end. Then, for what? My mother's hospital bills. Mrs. Castellano told me. Another long pause. Your mother deserved care. You deserved not to carry that burden alone. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have felt obligated. I didn't want your loyalty bought. I wanted it earned. My throat tightened. I don't understand you. I know, he said softly. But you don't have to. Just keep doing what you're doing. With Tommy. You're giving him something I can't. What's that? Someone who understands. The line went quiet, and I realized he'd hung up. I set the phone down and closed my eyes. For the first time in weeks, I slept without nightmares. 2 days later, I saw Dominic's world from the inside. I was cleaning the hall outside his office when raised voices erupted from behind the door. Not shouting. Controlled. Dangerous. He talked. We know he talked. That was Bruno's voice. The question is what we do about it. We follow procedure. Dominic's response was flat. No deviation. No emotion. He has a family. So do the 3 men who died because he gave up their route. My blood went cold. I should have left. Should have run. but my feet stayed frozen. You want me to make the call? Bruno asked. No, I'll do it. This one's on me. Footsteps approached the door. I moved quickly, pushing my cleaning cart down the hall, my heart hammering. The door opened. Dominic stepped out, phone in hand. His eyes found me immediately. Anna, my office needs cleaning. Give me 10 minutes. Yes, sir. He walked away, already dialing. I stood in the empty hallway, hands shaking, understanding finally settling into my bones. This was what he did. This was who he was. Not a man who saved vulnerable women out of kindness. A man who calculated loyalty and eliminated threats. I'd been living in a fairy tale. Thinking protection meant safety. Thinking his world was separate from the violence it was built on. I'd been wrong. That night Tommy asked me what was wrong. I was distracted during our time together, my mind replaying that conversation. 3 men dead. Traitor with a family. The coldness in Dominic's voice. Nothing, I lied. Just tired. Tommy frowned. You said you don't lie to me. I sighed. You're right. Sorry. I'm just thinking about things I don't understand. Like what? Like how someone can be 2 different people. Kind in one moment. Dangerous in another. Tommy was quiet for a minute. Then he spoke carefully. Uncle Dominic says sometimes you have to do bad things to protect good things. He says the world isn't fair, so you can't always be fair either. Do you believe that? I don't know. But I know he keeps me safe. And he kept you safe too. I looked at this 7-year-old child already making peace with moral complexity. Already understanding shades of gray. What if the bad things hurt people who don't deserve it? Asked gently. Like who? Like families of people who make mistakes. Tommy's face went still. Like my mom and dad. I realized too late what I'd said. Tommy, I didn't mean. My dad made a mistake, Tommy whispered. He was in the car with Mom driving too fast. It was his fault they crashed. Does that mean he deserved it? My heart broke. No, sweetie. No. Then maybe some bad things just happen. And maybe Uncle Dominic tries to make sure they don't happen to us. The next day I couldn't stop thinking about it. The man with a family. The 3 died because of his betrayal. The chain of pain reaching in every direction. I found myself outside Dominic's office that evening. The door was open. He sat at his desk, paperwork spread before him, a glass of whiskey untouched at his elbow. I knocked on the door frame. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. Anna, come in. I stepped inside, my heart racing. I need to ask you something. Go ahead. The man who talked. The one who got those 3 men killed. What happened to his family? Dominic leaned back in his chair, studying me. Why do you want to know? Because Tommy asked me if bad things just happen or if people make them happen. And I didn't know how to answer. He was silent for a long moment. His family was relocated. New city. New names. Enough money to start over. They don't know what he did. They think he died in an accident. I exhaled slowly. You protected them. I protected them from his choices. Not from him. What's the difference? The difference is legacy. What you do defines you. But it doesn't have to define everyone you love. I looked at him. This man who operated in shadows and carried weight I couldn't imagine. Is that why you protect Tommy? Because of what your brother did. My brother made a mistake. Drove too fast in a storm. Got himself and his wife killed. Left Tommy alone. His voice was quiet but heavy. I can't change that. But I can make sure Tommy knows his father's mistake wasn't all his father was. That man with the family, I said carefully. What will happen to him? Dominic's expression didn't change. He'll answer for his choices. Will you kill him? The question hung in the air between us. I'd never been this direct. Never challenged him openly. That depends, Dominic said finally. On what? On whether justice serves a purpose or satisfies a grudge. Took a breath. Tommy thinks you do bad things to protect good things. He's 7 years old, and he's already making peace with violence. Is that what you want? Is that the legacy you're building? Dominic's jaw tightened. For a moment I thought I'd gone too far. Then he stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the grounds. When my brother died, he said quietly, Tommy asked me if I was going to die too. If everyone he loved was going to leave him. I told him no. I promised him I would stay. That I would keep him safe. You can keep him safe without teaching him that cruelty is normal. He needs to understand the world. He needs to understand that you're better than the worst thing you've ever done. Dominic turned to face me, and something in his expression cracked, just slightly. You think I'm better than that? I think you want to be. I think you paid my mother's hospital bills because you wanted to be the person who helped someone without asking for anything back. And I think you're afraid that if you show mercy, you'll look weak. He stared at me for a long moment. You don't know my world, Anna. No. But I know Tommy. And I know what it's like to watch someone you love make choices they can't take back. 3 days later, Mrs. Castellano told me the traitor had been dealt with. She didn't elaborate. I didn't ask. But that night, Tommy told me Uncle Dominic had taken him for ice cream. They'd sat in the car eating sundaes, and Dominic had told him that being strong sometimes meant knowing when to stop. That protection wasn't always about force. That the people we love deserve the best version of us, not the easiest one. Tommy didn't understand everything his uncle meant, but he understood enough to smile. That evening I passed Dominic in the hallway. He stopped, looked at me with something that might have been respectful. The man's family is safe. He'll serve time in prison. No execution. No permanent disappearance. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me. You made me question myself. That's not something people do in my world. Maybe they should. He almost smiled. Maybe. As he walked away, I realized something had shifted. Not the power structure. Not my place in the hierarchy. But the way he saw me. The way I saw myself. I wasn't just a housekeeper anymore. I was a voice that mattered. A presence that influenced. Someone who'd challenged authority and lived to see the outcome change. It wasn't safety. It wasn't freedom. But it was power. Small and fragile but real. A week later, Dominic called me to his office. Bruno stood by the door, arms crossed, but his expression wasn't hostile. Mrs. Castellano sat in the corner, her hands folded. Sit, Dominic said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I sat, my stomach tight with nerves. 3 years ago, you protected someone you didn't know. You lost your job. Got hurt. Gained nothing. He pulled out a file. My file. The surveillance photos. The reports. You've been here 6 months. In that time you've followed every rule. Never complained. Never asked for anything. And you gave my nephew something I couldn't. Stability. Honesty. Someone who treats him like a person instead of a tragedy. I didn't know what to say, so I stayed quiet. I'm making changes, Dominic continued. Legitimate businesses. Legal operations. It'll take time. Years. But I want Tommy to inherit something clean. Something he can be proud of. That's good, I said softly. I need people I can trust in that transition. People who see the world differently than I do. People who'll tell me when I'm wrong. My heart started racing. I'm offering you a position. Not as a housekeeper. As Tommy's guardian. You'll live here, help raise him, make decisions about his education and welfare. The salary is substantial. Full autonomy within clear boundaries. I stared at him. Why me? Because you're the only person in this house who challenges me. And because Tommy needs someone who survived loss without becoming bitter. I thought about it for 2 days. Dominic didn't push. He gave me space. Let me process. On the 3rd day, I went to Tommy's room. He was drawing as usual. Dark lines. Empty spaces. But now there were small spots of color. Red. Blue. Yellow. Anna! He jumped up when he saw me. Look, I drew you. See, that's your hair. And those are the flowers from the garden. I looked at the picture. A figure in the garden, surrounded by blooms, smiling. Me. But happier than I'd been in years. It's beautiful, Tommy. I want you to stay, he said quietly. I know Uncle Dominic offered you a job. Please stay. I knelt down to his level. If I stay, things will be different. I won't just be the person who visits at night. I'll be around all the time. I'll set rules. Make you do homework. Probably embarrass you sometimes. That's okay. Moms do that. The word hit me like a punch. Tommy, I'm not. I know you're not my real mom. But you're the closest thing I've got. And I don't want you to leave. I pulled him into a hug, and he wrapped his arms around me tight. Two broken people holding on to each other. Two survivors finding something that felt like family. I'm staying, I whispered. He squeezed harder. Promise. Promise. The paperwork was signed within a week. My debt was cleared. My salary deposited. My room expanded to a suite on the second floor with space for Tommy when he wanted to stay close. Dominic sat me down one evening and laid out the boundaries. I had authority over Tommy's daily life, education, health, social activities. But security decisions remained with him. Household rules stayed in place. And if threats emerged, I followed Bruno's instructions without question. I'm not giving you freedom, Dominic said bluntly. I'm giving you purpose. There's a difference. I understand. Do you? He leaned forward. This house will always be dangerous. My past doesn't disappear because I'm trying to build a different future. People will come after what I have. After what I love. That includes Tommy. And now it includes you. I know. And you're still willing to stay. I thought about my mother. About the years I spent watching her fight. About the moment I stepped between that drunk man and the pregnant waitress. About every choice I'd ever made that led me here. My whole life I've been trying to survive, I said quietly. For the first time I have the chance to do more than that. To actually protect someone. To matter. Dominic nodded slowly. Then welcome to the family, Anna. Such as it is. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't safety. But it was mine. 2 months after I accepted the position, Bruno came to me during breakfast. His face was tight. We have a situation. Someone's been asking questions. About you. About Tommy. About the household structure. My stomach dropped. Who? We're not sure yet. But they know Tommy's routine. They know you're his guardian. They're looking for weaknesses. Dominic appeared in the doorway. Anna. Tommy stays home from school today. You stay in the house. Bruno doubles the perimeter. For how long? Until we find them. The fear came rushing back. The cage tightening. But this time it was different. This time I wasn't just a liability being managed. I was part of the defense. What do you need me to do? Asked. Dominic looked surprised. Stay safe. That's all. No. What do you need me to do to help find them? He studied me. Then pulled out his phone. Bruno. Get Anna the security protocols. Teach her the emergency procedures. If something happens, I want her ready. Bruno nodded. Yes, sir. That afternoon I learned how to lock down the house. How to access the panic room. How to use the security cameras. How to contact backup. I wasn't helpless anymore. I was prepared. The threat was neutralized within a week. A rival trying to gather intelligence. Bruno's team handled it quietly. But the message was clear. Danger didn't rest. It waited. Looked for openings. But I wasn't alone in facing it. I had Tommy. I had Mrs. Castellano. I had Bruno. I had Dominic in his complicated, controlled way. One evening, Tommy and I sat in the garden watching fireflies dance above the flowers. His head rested on my shoulder. Anna, he said quietly. Yeah. Do you think my parents would like you? Thought about that. About the mother and father he barely remembered. About whether they'd approve of the strange life he was living now. I think they'd be grateful you're not alone, I said. I think they'd like you, Tommy insisted. I think they'd say thank you. I kissed the top of his head. I think I'd like them too. We sat in the quiet, surrounded by walls and guards and cameras and all the machinery that kept us safe. Not perfect, not free, but together. And for now that was enough. The house behind us glowed with warm light. Dominic stood at a window watching, protecting what he'd built, making peace with who he was and who he wanted to become. The legend of the Mafia boss who came home early, who stayed, who changed, not completely, not perfectly, but enough to matter. And that, I was learning, was what survival really meant.